because normally people say, oh, do a masterclass and there's about 500 flute players. Sure. But I don't see them. So how do you want to do this and what am I supposed to do?
We don't know either.
Let me ask you this. What do you want to know?
Secrets. All the secrets.
Name it.
You'd like to work with a couple of players first, and then maybe at the end we could do some question and answers.
Well, let me tell you about working with people. Working with people is a long time investment. You see, I can tell you something today, and it's not going to make any difference right now. Okay?
I brought a notebook to write it all down.
Okay, here's the first thing to write in it. Practice. Practice. Because, you know, without practice, it doesn't matter what you do or whose method you use. It's just not going to work. By the time I was 20, I'd done something like about 11,000 hours of practice. That's an awful lot of practice. But you see, when I was a kid, going to school, I took my flute and played it in the street on the way one year. Played it in the street on the way. And if I got thrown out of a class for doing something bad, I played it out there. And I just played flute all the time. And then I began around about the age of 11 or 12 or something like that to have organized lessons in which the practice was more constructed. That's to say, we had maybe if school finished at 3 o'clock, I would practice till 6 when my parents came home from work. And then we had dinner, and then I would practice another couple of hours. You see, so this is what I did when I was 11 and 12. Whereas most music students, majors, I don't think they do that much practice in a day. You know what I mean? They just don't do it because, first of all, they don't believe it. But you can easily see when you look at the string department, the string players are way ahead of everybody else. Why? Because they practice. The piano players are the same. The piano department is always outstanding because they just practice all the time. And the string departments are the same. This was my impression when I went to the Royal College of Music when I was 16. And I heard all these guys practicing violin, and they were practicing basically a whole bunch of scales and arpeggios and things like this, along with the Mendelssohn violin concerto, which I got to know from memory at an early age. And I thought, I'm doing something wrong here because it doesn't work for me the way it works for them. So what I did was I went home at Christmas, and during the Christmas break, I practiced the whole entire day, every day, just playing scales. And when I came back after a month, I couldn't believe the difference in things. I mean, when we sat down to play Tchaikovsky's Fourth Symphony in the school orchestra, which was pretty good, I was playing, I think, second or third flute, something like that. And it must have been second because there's a guy playing fiddle. I'll never forget this experience because nobody could play the last page, because the last page is chromatic scales, and not chromatic scales, but scales written in sequence chromatic. And I had one look at this thing and said, okay, that's such a scale, that's another scale, that's such. And I just wrote the names of the scales. I just played them. Bang. Right? Whereas the others are, what's this? So, this taught me two things. That scales are a really big part of learning to play and maintaining your form. And in fact, getting better than everybody around you. So I did that, but you know, scales at the Royal College of Music weren't a big deal because my teacher, he was a good teacher, as these teachers sort of go. And I would turn up with a bunch of stuff, and he'd say, "Did you practice your scales?" I'd say, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, what piece did you learn?" I said, "Oh, I learned this Carnival of Venison variations of the octave." And he'd say, "Well, okay, play that." So I played that. And that was as deep as my lessons ever got there. But eventually I left, and after 3 years at the college, I went to another place, where there was a really good flute teacher called Jeffrey Gilbert. So I turned up for my first lesson with Jeffrey, and I prepared the percussion, Bach G minor and Hindemith sonatas, and he played the piano for all of this stuff. And he said, "Okay, Galway, why do you play so loud all the time?" I said, "Only because the piano player's too loud." This is me in my innocence at 20 years old, you know. So he then gave me some scales, and they were grouped in groups of 5 and 7. So I learned those, and he also gave me a study to learn by Leonardo de Lorenzo, which was 4 pages long. And he decided to learn a piece by Erwin Schulhoff, which is also difficult. So I got all this up and running as best I could for the next week. Came in, got out my flute, tried a few notes, and Gilbert said, "Galway, did you practice your scales?" "Yes, sir." "Let's hear them." I said, "Which one?" He said, "All of them." So I had to play all these major minor scales, plus the whole tone scales, and a few other weird scales that I've since forgotten. And then he said, "What about the study?" So I started to play this study, which went on top A flat to F, because F minor. And he put out a cigarette. He smoked all the time through my lessons. And he got out his flute without warming up and went. I turned a page and he played the whole entire thing. And I thought, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to play the flute like that. I don't want to play the flute like all these other jokers because they're all struggling. And I don't want to struggle. Right? So I got going with that. And then when I got to, eventually I got to the Paris Conservatoire to study there. And there was a place, the conservatoire, when I was there, was constructed in the following way. We had one class a week for interpretation and one class just for scales and studies. And for me, the studies were the most difficult because they did Anderson Opus 15, and I never learned them, so I had to really work on those. And then we did, I thought my time with scales had finished. We started to do Marcel Moy's daily exercises, which I'm sure the flute players know what I'm talking about. Everyone's play A, B, C, D, and you learn all that. It takes about 45 minutes to play. So I did all that, and it was interesting in the conservatoire because the lessons started at 8 in the morning. To my Irish way of thinking, 8 o'clock was the most uncivilized time, anything except dreaming. And I checked in about 11 o'clock. Well, you won't believe it. 8 o'clock started off. We all had to be there, even if you weren't playing, because it was the class. The first guy, he would stand up and go, next guy, three-quarters of an hour later, next, so by the time I got to me, it was really cranked up. And boy, was I glad I learned the studies and the scales anyway, when I was at this London College in the Guildhall, because it was a big success. But there again, my teacher, Castleton, during the scales on etudes, he read the newspaper all the way through the lesson and smoked gitan, which I like better. I noticed that Jeffrey Gilbert was smoking. He was smoking English. He was blowing tobacco. I didn't smell that so much. But this is the way it went on, and I realized it's not so much the teacher who really improves the child, but it's the method. And the method has to be written by somebody who is a really good flute player. And I don't mean somebody who has a job in a university or something, or these sort of people. I mean somebody who's out there at the age of 50, premiering concertos like the Ebert concerto. This is what Marcel always did. He played that when he was 50. There's a great recording of it. And in those days you couldn't cut anything because it was on 78s. And you have to study a scale method by somebody who has played the instrument and written for the instrument. And you have to study a method that's not based on getting around it. There's no getting round. There is no getting round. You have to really do it right on the nose. That's it. And if you don't, you're going to be one of these people who say, hey, do you know a fake fingering for that bit in Tchaikovsky 4? No, I know the real fingering. I remember when I first joined the LSO, Marta Argerich was going to play the Tchaikovsky, and there's a tricky bit in the last movement for a flute, and of course I messed it up a little bit, but not much. So then Dave Salmon, who was the second flute and very experienced, said, Jimmy, listen, here's good fingering for this thing. So it came to the evening, I tried it, and I got his bit in my bit, and my bit in his bit. If you see what I mean, I got it all mixed up. And there was not one right note in the whole thing. The orchestra, I think, especially the bass players, they nearly died because they knew me very well. This is the funniest thing I ever heard. But generally speaking, use the right fingering. Just train yourself to do it. Question?
Well, if no one else has a question, I do. I'm a bit of an interloper here. I work with the children's chorus in that.
What's the question?
My question is, could you address embouchure? And I can remember attending a Masterclass with you about 25 years ago where you spoke to a specific embouchure for each note, and you could.
Yeah, that's true. You have to have a. You have to have a different embouchure for each note. Just ask a bassoon player, or you know, you can't play a high note with the same embouchure you play a low one, right?
Yep.
And does that mean that the other notes are all got different embouchures, specifically the best place for an embouchure? It's the same with the flute, except people don't realize it. And they don't want to know about it when you tell them. Yeah, because you know what? It involves a little bit of work. I've always been one for practicing. I like practicing. You know why? There is nothing that feeds the soul like success. You just feel so great when you can do something, and real stupid when you can't. Yes. Now, I'm sure you all know that the best embouchure is one that's flexible. I mean, if you play the horn, for example, you can't play the top register with the same embouchure as the bottom or even the middle. It's a real specialized thing. And when you realize this on the flute, then you begin to see things different. For example, if you play any tune, if you don't do something about that note, it's going to come out like that because I'm using the same embouchure. kids, you hear it. Well, you could tell them to change the embouchure. You could tell them to change it for that note. And they'll gradually get the hang of it because they'll gradually realize that you do have to change to make it sound good. To have a good flexibility, the embouchure, then you can play. Sorry, very long notes. Next. But you see what I mean? You change the embouchure for doing different jobs, and you don't just blow the flute. And people think, well, you know, but when do you start teaching that? Well, you start teaching it immediately, of course. If you take a violin player, a kid, the first thing they teach him is how to stand, how to hold it under your chin, how to put your hand on the fingerboard, how to hold the bow, and they're off. And you see, of course, the kid doesn't do this immediately. The next lesson, the teacher harps on the same old thing, tells them what to do again, and the next lesson, until eventually the teacher will begin to speak of other things and no longer how to hold it, because the child has mastered a good posture and a good position for playing. But the flute, you get out the flute, the teacher said, okay, get your flute out. So you get the flute out, they assume you can put it together. You get out the flute and you start playing. Oh, you know that note's a bit short, play it a bit longer. You see, and they don't address the real difficulty. Many times because they really don't know. Because they've never been to a school where they teach these sort of things. You see, I would say in America that the relationship between a teacher and a student is a very easygoing one. You know, you find a path as a teacher that won't upset the student too much, and the student finds a path to do enough practice not to get the teacher ticked off, right? But in France it's different. There is no communication from the student to the teacher. If he says, we're going to do this week and we're all going to stand on our heads in the corner, they all do it. There is no argument or finding an easier way. Because there is no easier way, there's only one way to do it. And I think, look at me at my age, the things I can do on a flute, that some people can't do when they're 20 even. You know, because they don't do the right thing. Now, I came across a lot of this by accident. When I was in Belfast, I had a lady who taught me how to play, and she was a singer, a really good professional singer. And she took up the flute just what she did out of curiosity. And she became quite a good flute player. And she got a job in the orchestra in Belfast when she came here with her husband, who was the director of music for Northern Ireland schools. And she taught me how to have a good standing position, how to have a good, how do you call it, posture, and posture giving way to what you call understood song.
Support.
Support, yeah. The posture and support, you see, to her as a singer, was absolutely the first thing. You couldn't begin to sing a note unless you had the right. And she applied it to the flute, and that's what I did too. And also, if you flute players, if you look in Taffanel and Gaubert's method, the complete method, not just the thing that goes, not this one. Not that, but there are, at the very beginning, little lessons for beginners, and they show you how to hold the flute, how to do all that. And that's what I do to this day. I follow these rules. But they were reinforced by accident, because when I went to London to study with John Francis, began to get some jobs in little orchestras, you know, playing the part of the bride and stuff like this, or Young and Sullivan opera, like the Yeoman and the Lad or Ricardo. And with this money, I decided I'm going to buy some of these books of Moy's, because on my Moy's book, there was all these books that he'd written. And I thought, look at this one, Grand Liaison, what's that about? So I bought it, opened it up, and this is how it goes. And then I took it to my teacher and said, what's this all about? And he said, I don't know, just keep practicing. Which, you know, was positive advice on the subject, because he could have said, forget it. But eventually, I realized what it was all about. This is what it was about. You see, you move your embouchure for every one of these notes. So that means when you play a scale, you have embouchure for here. Right? So when you play, you incorporate all these embouchures into it. So that every note sounds good and healthy, and it's relatively well in tune. Then there were some other exercises in there, this one for example. Which of course when I saw it, the first thing I did was but then the penny dropped after a while why I should be doing it. And then fitting it all together, here's why I was doing it. That's better. You see, you have the ability to play these top notes beautiful, and the ability to come back to a good mezzo forte in the middle register if you know what you're doing and study this. But of course with young children you can modify these exercises. And then we have to talk about this is standard equipment with bassoon players, and clarinet players I think so too. Oboe players I don't know so much about, we always have to cite them for but I know what they do. Anyhow, but I know that on the clarinet you'll have to change, because I played a little bit of saxophone, only a little bit. Only to figure it out, and I figured it, I gave it up. But you will realize that these people, they have to do that, they have to change their own shirt. And as flute players, if we don't do it, well, here's the news, you're just going to be one of the other ones. Imagine. Pittsburgh Symphony, the Met, New York Phil, Chicago, all these guys are European trained, and they all know how to do these exercises like, and not only that, they can play scales like crazy. So this is basically what I do when I play the flute, and incorporate all these things. Now the next big thing, and this is a thing that really upsets some of my students, is that they have to put this hand right on the flute, not like this. This is the short version of this. You have to find a position where you give length to both ring fingers. So that you can do things like. That's what I'm looking for. You know, that you can play that piece and you're not worried about if you're going to get the notes. I mean, I'm never worried about getting the notes. It just didn't occur to me that I wouldn't, because my fingers were right on the place. This is one bit that's in Laura Mosell's thing. It starts on D sharp. It goes down to low B. And we don't have rollers to do that. So it's essential you have a good thing. But I discovered a good way of cheating. This is the only thing I do. Pull the hedge out of half a tone and go. Then you have to remember to push it back in. Well, I can do it, but you know, I can't really guarantee it that I, to the degree I would like. The trouble is you have about 5 minutes to sit before you do that. Okay, what do you want to know? That's one of the Anderson studies that I had to learn too sweet from France. And, you know, recently, oh, maybe 3 years, 4 years ago, I decided to make some editions of some of these Byrne things. And the first one that I did was the 15 easy exercises, or 15 studies that he wrote. Like, it was like a owner's manual for the Byrne flute, because when he invented this flute, there was no fingering chart existing for it. He just invented the flute and then everybody got on with it. But then he wrote a fingering chart and he wrote these studies that go like this. And so forth. But then I suddenly remembered when I was at the Royal College, I learned the Byrne caprices. These are 24 caprices that he wrote also for the flute. And I remember learning them like this. So I went in my library, got out these studies, opened up the page, and to my horror, it said vivace. So that changed the whole ball game. You were required to do this. You know what? It's easy when you know how. But how do you do that? Well, you have to ask yourself, what are you trying to do? Because each study is about something. And generally speaking, the first etude in every book of flute studies that's written by a flute player I mean a real flute player, not one who's an organ player who plays flute. You know, Anderson, Taffanel, and the Taffanel ones are great for kids, but nobody looks that far. You know. That's one. Oh, the second one's very good in that too because it's about Mordants. And you know, if you want to play this piece of Lawrence, you've got to play a lot of Mordants in Irish music. And so forth. And Curler, for example. All about the finger, don't hit the keys. Alright? Because when you hit the keys, if you're hitting the keys, it destroys the legato between one note and the next. You see what I mean? What key is that in originally? Oh, hello? What key is that in originally? A. Is it the slow movement also? Or is it slow movement in E? Doesn't matter. That was just came out. I think it's a good thing to be able to play pieces that you know or don't know even on the flute or on any instrument, just for interest. You know, pieces like the Swan, which are very well constructed from a compositional point of view, are very good for playing and finding the difficulties in your instrument. No matter what instrument you play, if you do this, now you realize the difficulties you have there because there are certain notes which are a little bit high, like C natural and so forth on the flute. Then, if you do it half a tone higher, there you end on a D flat, which is also high. So what do you do about that? You buy a new head joint, or you buy a new flute because somebody says, "Oh, do you know that this flute has a William Bennett scale, or the other one has a Trevor White scale." I mean, if you want to play like those guys, get those scales. But no matter what scale it is, you still have to observe the rules, which is that when the flute gets warm here, this part is going to be high. That's C sharp, C and B flat. It's going to be higher in comparison with the rest of the flute, you know. So therefore you have to learn how to do this. You see? these things in tune because you will train your embouchure what to do. Another good one to play in different keys is this one. You know, I think these are good exercises to do just warming up. You know, the first 5 minutes, 15 minutes of the day, just play some of these tunes. You should have heard me last week, it was much better. I'm getting too old. Okay, what else do you want to know?
How's the instrument changed over time, the way it's made, and also just the way it's been played? Has it been changing, or is it?
Oh yeah, you know, originally the silver flutes, metal flutes were made with a single tube. That means they were made with one flat piece of metal, twirled around the mandrel and soldered. And now they have a drawn tube, and of course there's a whole rigmarole goes on about that drawn tube. So I don't care, stop talking about it, just practice it. Well, sure. And then the mechanism, of course. I mean, this is a hard flute, and the mechanism of it is really very much superior to any of these other ones. For example, I have a Broger flute, not made in America, but made in Denmark by Mr. Broger. It only took him 2 years of me pestering him to finish it off. And then he did bring it, and it's a great flute, and it has a fantastic mechanism. But because I have so many flutes, I never know which one to play next. You know, I did bring some flutes, a few flute players want to try them. Because a couple of weeks ago already, I did a premiere on a flute concerto in Dublin, and the last notes were these ones. And then a big chord of F major, BOM! So I brought my platinum flute because it actually did make a difference, the finger, for the last 2 notes. And I also have a Haynes flute, which is I think Haynes are making really good flutes too. So you can try this if you want. But the mechanism is the thing which has made the most progress. And it has come down to these little flute makers like Nakahara, who employs only a handful of people. Haynes, I think, employs 6 people. And you know, when you compare them to these other big flute makers like Yamaha, who turn around like sausages, Muramatsu, they have 60 people working in there, I think, or maybe even more. So, you know, the specialized guys, they tend to look at it a bit different because they don't have to make the same flute every time. Because some guys turn up and say, listen, could you do me a favor and make this roller here a little bit nearer that, and they'll do it. You see, so they look to see what the best mechanism can be. And then also they look at the scales, and you know, the best tuned flutes that I've played on were my Cooper flutes. They were really good, and I still have them, but 2 of them are A445, and one is A442. Well, these are the ones I had made especially for the Berlin Philharmonic, because you know, you have to have the right tools for the job. And you know, when I looked at the other guys playing, I mean, Andreas Blau, he managed very well. I was always amazed at his playing. was so very well tuned. But Dr. Demmer, he played on a Haynes, and he just cut the head to get the A in tune. What's the sense in having the A in tune if the C sharp goes up a quarter of a tone? You know, and you don't do anything about it. I mean, it used to drive me insane. It drove Carry On insane too. So there's all these things taking place in flute making. And, you know, oh, there's another good flute maker, and I forgot, Emmanuel. I have one of his flutes as well, and it's a real good one. But when I get home, I try all these flutes, and I get so confused myself. I know. I think that the old days when I had one flute was the best. And I had 2 power flutes made in Germany by Fenwick Smith. We were talking about flutes, and I said, you know, Fenwick, I have this theory that the gold that these guys use is no good. It's too soft. That Cooper made flutes with a harder gold. So one time I was in London and I bought enough gold for 3 flutes, came over back to Berlin and said to them, okay, go to it. Make 3 flutes, one of them yours, the other 2 are mine. And he did. And these flutes are absolutely, without doubt, a cut above all other panels that I've ever played in my life. Of course, I have to use an Nagara head because there was no headpiece on them. But that's okay. A lot of people get hollow flutes and stick all their headpieces in them right away. Some people buy them with no headpiece. Yes?
I was wondering if we could perform for you. I have a duo with my singer friend over here. We wanted to play the John Carigliano 3 Irish folk song settings.
Wait a minute.
We wanted to perform for you.
Who does?
I do.
Come on. What do you want to perform?
We have John Carigliano 3 Irish folk song settings.
Okay.
And I have strings.
My grandson plays the clarinet, but when he was 10 he wanted to play the bagpipes, and he's always been into music. And when he was about 11 or something, he turned up with the clarinet. I said, Sammy, what happened to the bagpipes? He said, and his face dropped a mile, and he said, Mom, these are too expensive. I was thinking of buying some bagpipes just to get my own back on her. Right. Oh, you were going to sing? Okay. Right, I didn't realize, I thought we were going to do the, John does this with 2 flutes, or flute and clarinet. But this is great. Okay. Did you ever think to make a different tone on these low notes?
Yeah. You mean in general, or like maybe when you come back and fix it?
No, in general.
I could do it. Yeah, I could do it.
Show me what it is. Don't tone too hard, because imagine if we're starting a note soft.
Yeah.
We don't want to use it for decimal articulation.
Right.
Maybe not even tongue it. Don't make a imagine there's no bar line. Because when she's singing, she's not worried about bar lines.
Right.
Okay, we'll go for that.
Okay.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see, this is why I told you, teaching on a day doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
It needs time to think, to get the idea,
Mm-hmm.
and then do it, but we'll try for it anyway. Now, what's your name?
I'm happy.
Catherine. Hi. Have you thought of using less vibrato in this?
I'd love to, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Hi. you practice your growing hazel. But then it's a bit difficult with your type of embouchure, because my embouchure is like this, basically. A little bit like that. And this one, believe me, works better. Possibility. Okay, never mind, this is where we are today, and I'm grateful to be here at this point, listening to it as it is. Okay, let's just have a look at this. You know, the intonation is very good, but can you get into the center of the note a bit more?
Absolutely.
You know? You know, this piece, we need to get a good atmosphere. No vibrato. Or when I say vibrato, I mean this tremolo, sometimes it gets applied. Don't apply a tremolo.
Okay.
There's a big difference between vibrato and a moment of passion in the music than this. Try to avoid that for the rest of your life. Yeah, because it doesn't do anything. You know, it reminds me of my old grandmother when she was dying in the place there, and her best friend playing a Hammond organ with a tremolo. People are trying to get her to come back from the dead. All right. Let's do our solo again. Now, you see what I mean? Yeah, right into it, into it. That's good. It's just there both times that its intonation suffers on the G sharp. It's too high.
Okay. Can you pull my foot down?
I don't know how you do that technically. What are you doing? Give me a hand. You hold it up. Imagine a good joke, but I can't tell it yet. Where do we get to? Yes. Oh, do you know one thing here? Just at this little solo here, we're going to do a ritornando. So it means we can stop. Instead of right? Let's do the same thing again. Very good. Wait, you see, you're employing this tremolo all the time.
Sorry. Yeah, yeah, it needs a bit more technique, you know. Yeah. And you know, it's a little bit slower. You know, Okay.
normally we sing. You know, folk bands will play this. Okay, go ahead. Just try just a little bit quicker anyway. And we'll not record. Yep.
Thank you. play Syrinx?
Not really.
What flute have you got?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Is it a new one?
No, this is actually like some music.
Uh-huh. You wanna try a new one? Come on.
Yes,
Could you give? No, Emily too.
that one, yeah.
Yay. Oh, you are? All of them. Next month you can buy them all in one box. There's 71 of them. Yeah, I hope so. I need the money. Have you ever wondered what this thing here is for? Very expensive coat hanger as well. That's about a year old. And you can buy it if you want, because I'll make you another one.
Oh, it's in line.
Oh, it's in line? Never mind, I can show you how to do that.
Okay.
Right, right here. Take a playing position. Go ahead. A little bit. Don't be afraid to put your thumb up there, because you know, you don't need to do this.
Yeah, right.
Just this will do. See, look here.
Okay.
That's many.
Yeah.
Love, do you?
I have one in this one.
Eh?
I used a plug in this maker.
You need some serious help
I
here.
know. Sorry.
Let's see if we can get this out of transfer.
Yeah.
How many flute players are here? Wow, all three of you. Yeah, I think it's a good flute.
Yeah. Wow.
But you want to play yours?
No, I like
Okay,
this one.
go ahead.
This one.
Syrinx is that when you play, you have to sort of play it in time
Yeah.
and not stop so often.
Okay.
What does that mean?
You're asking me?
I think so. I mean, where are you ever
So actually it's not using such large pauses. We're
Right.
playing like these breaths
Right.
here.
Now, moderate, very moderate. You know what the marking for moderate is on the metronome? I'll tell you. Yeah, don't tell anybody. It's 109. So, you know, the first thing all flute players do. See, this is moderate. Instead of getting right into it. You see, when you play it like that, you have much more choice of rubato.
Yeah.
Whereas when it's very slow and stopping and pensive, then you don't have so much leeway to do something with the music. But if you imagine, you know, this guy Syrinx, he wasn't famous for being shy.
Right.
So he bounded right in there. Hey! Da, 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 hey. You see, this is stopping. It's not D,
Oh,
the D,
yeah.
the D, the no. Ding, 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 ding. Right, of course. Now you would say maybe that's a bit straightforward. But now we've got it straightforward, we can afford to examine the possibilities of rubato. Whereas before, it was so rubato,
Yeah.
right? This is my platinum flute, you know, the one with the... There is a slight difference between but that one is... Okay, so you see what I'm talking about? Yes. More action, because this Syrinx guy, he was very active.
Right.
I don't want to misrepresent. Wait, let me correct a couple of things.
Yeah.
Stand up straight. Can you teach her about posture when you got a minute? You know, this is what flute players do. control over any breathing. If it's all over there like this. Okay, and the very last thing. Grandma's not dead yet, forget that. Now this dot D. I would even slur it because it sounds a bit funny. Yeah. Now try and do something about that. Da 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 dee. Da 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 da. Yeah. It's a sort of French thing, you know, something rather like this. Da 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 da. You know, a little. Go ahead. Just do right up there.
From here?
Yeah. Now already. Yes, that's more acceptable. Wait till she has another 10 lessons with me.
Same thing there.
Yeah. I would do this a bit quicker. You know why this is slow? Because in tradition, it's difficult, and by tradition, it never got sorted out. People keep. Don't stop.
So don't slow down at all?
No, what for? Yeah, but don't,
Okay.
say that, but don't.
Okay.
Now, if you do slow down, what are you trying to do? Make a point or something? Stand up straight.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, the next section, I think is a different character, this is introduced.
Right, okay, we'll go over that.
Okay.
Okay. You know what I mean? Push it on a bit. in tempo. Very moderate in tempo. Who's us after this? What was her name? Don't hit the keys and don't tremolando. Right, very good. Now you want to not begin this with too soft, because we need to go somewhere. And this, by the way, should be here, it's on the screen. This accent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. Okay, did you want to play the bassoon for me?
I can, yes.
Well, come on.
Yay, chair.
Sure.